Hey guys, I'm here. My music's not, but I'm here. Welcome to Not So Random Chat. I know I'm a little bit earlier than I normally am on tonight, but I wanted to get started early. So, hola from the west side. And I know I'm not starting like I normally do, but forgive me. Whether the music was on or not, I was coming in. I see everybody in the chat. I see you guys in the chat. Thank you so much for coming out. Happy Sunday to everyone. And to those of you who do frequent um, religious or fellowships on Sunday, I hope you had a good Sunday at church. Um, but I wanted to give some little sentiments about some things. Um, First off, I wanted to talk about the awful church shooting that happened earlier today. So we want to put prayers up for the people at that, I believe it was a Church of Christ church in Texas, where a shooting happened this morning. And, just prayers up to them. From what I understand, their security took out the shooter. And so they handled the situation. And that's a very interesting thing to talk about, because I don't think people think about the fact that a lot of churches have security teams that are armed, especially in light of things that have happened in recent years at churches. But this particular shooting happened in Texas, so we should not be surprised that they had armed security at the church, because Texas is one of the stand your ground states. And also, hey, Miss Joy, and also, a lot of people in Texas own guns. Let's not be ignorant about that. It is what it is. They brag about that, about people being able to just carry their firearms freely in that state. But nevertheless, I still think that it was tragic. Thankfully that these security were armed, but sorrowful that they had to be armed in a holy place or in a church, because in this situation, unlike the one last year in, I think, North Carolina, this was again I believe a predominantly white congregation here in Texas, and the shooter was also white, but one wonders, why that other church didn't have people, armed security in their church. Because I'm going to be honest with you. I go to a church in the Los Angeles area, and I know that our security are packing. I mean, most of them are, police officers or retired police officers. And so they're clearly legally carrying firearms. But, people do crazy things at churches. Unfortunately, you have to think about that. So, I mean, that just was a really, really sad situation that happened this morning. I'm here, at my church, and just, thanking God for the last Sunday of the year, and these people are at their church, and several people did not make it out of there. Thankfully, it was only, I believe, 2 people who were injured at that. And I think it was probably some part of the security team. So none of the actual other church members, because, security took, control of the situation right away. And, I thought about, because, you think about things like that. You think about how your own church is laid out and to whether security would have to do similar things. But I know that I've noticed, like in our church, the security guys are usually standing towards the back of the church where they can easily get to anywhere that someone could come in. The other doors are locked, and they're out, patrolling the lots and stuff, doing the service as well. So I would imagine that they had similar things going on at this church in Texas. I can only imagine, but also that they would have some security at the back of the church. And apparently this man had been in the church earlier, left, and then came back and commenced to shooting. So just makes you, wonder what that mindset was. And what is the mindset of someone who does not reverence the Almighty? Because in all of these situations where it's in a church or in a synagogue or whatever, the person who's doing this has no reverence for God, has no reverence for a higher power. And this happening on the last Sunday of the year, something to think about. Hey, Mitchell family, how are you? Hey, Miss Mahogany. Hey, 1SP. Marlon Music, in case I didn't say hi to you guys. I know I just started talking. Hey, Tennessee Kim. Yeah. So, that the shooting this morning in the church, it doesn't surprise me that the security took him out because it was in Texas. But I don't know. I don't know why it surprised me every time this happens in churches or in synagogues, because you want to think that people would have respect for that, but there's many people who don't even believe there is a God. So if they don't believe there is a God, then how would they have that, that kind of reverence? They just won't do it. But 1 second, guys. I'm helping my son, seeing what he needs, because he's in my kitchen. I'm coming right back, guys. All right. Don't slam my microwave, please, son. Okay? All right. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about before I forget about it. Hey, Miss Uppity Unicorn. Yeah, before I forgot about it, is the situation with the young lady in Baltimore last week. And most of you guys know I'm from the East Coast. I'm not from Baltimore, but I am from about 40 minutes south of there. And there was a 21-year-old young lady who was shot dead in her own salon by other people of color. Yeah, by other people of color. And it appears it was a jealousy situation. I mean, she owned her own salon at 21. She was a single parent. She had just bought herself a nice little car, you know, and they walked into her salon in broad daylight and shot her dead. And apparently a few days before this happened, she was physically assaulted. So they came in there and took this young lady's life at the age of 21, you guys. 21. I've seen some of the pictures of her. And she was a beautiful, beautiful young lady. In the prime of her life. Hey, AKA James. Hey, Better Understanding. Thank you for coming through. That's one of my autism families. But that was, yeah, with the young lady, I think her name was Destiny. I want to say that that was her first name. I don't remember what her last name was. But apparently she was unfortunately just another of who got shot and killed in Baltimore. Hey, Darren. You know, and it's just unfortunate that this young lady's daughter is, you know, going to be left, you know, left an orphan. You know, guys, I'm gonna put you guys on pause for a second. I'm gonna mute you for 1 second. Let me do something. One moment. Upstairs, okay? Do you want to be respectful? Are you gonna be respectful? I hope so. Yeah. Hey guys, I'm back. It's one of those days, y'all. David's not having a happy day. I'm glad it's the end of the weekend, though, because he goes back to work tomorrow. It's always tranquility in my chat. And, oh, guys, I was watching a friend, one of my YouTube friends. I was watching a video on their channel. And they were talking about something that I think that I talk about on my channel all the time. That those of us who have the drama-free live streams, maybe we should, you know, put that in the title of our live stream so people know that, you know, going in and know that it's a safe zone, so to speak, you know, where they're not going to get harassed, you know, not going to get caught up in a bunch of YouTube beef that's either on or off of YouTube. You know, I don't know if I want to necessarily put that on my lives other than to just say it as a given. you know, that this is a drama-free zone. You know what I mean? I don't think, you know, because for one thing, nobody's seen me involved in any drama. I wasn't around when any of the drama really started. And so I think it's pretty much a given. And because when I came on YouTube, I'm not really, I'm in the Black sector, but I'm not in any specific part of the Black sector. I'm just a Black YouTuber. You know what I mean? Because my channel is about my life as a caregiver. Hey, I am Lucy. That's right. We don't have those kind of moments on mine either, uppity. You know, because I'm not in high school. You know, I'm a long way from there. I don't do clicks. I don't do beef with people I don't know. I don't call people out of their names and stuff like that. I don't see the point in all of that. And, you know, I think a lot of that is going to really be stopping because y'all know that as of the 11th of December, all those harassment rules went into place. And if you notice, because I have, a lot of the stuff that has happened since then, you notice that it's not really happening on a lot of the channels that are monetized. It's happening on channels that aren't monetized, you know? But I think people should still be very, very careful because even if your channel is not monetized, if they're out there, you know, putting out hate, calling people out of their names, just because nothing has happened so far doesn't mean that YouTube's not going to shut your channel down. Not based on what was in that memo that's on the YouTube official blog. Yeah. I have noticed that no monetized channels are doing the beef. You know, not really. Not since I haven't seen anything on any of them channels that I know are monetized. You know, I'm just observing that. You know, there's a couple of monetized channels that are doing, you know, stuff. Maybe they just don't care. You know, meanwhile, we over here, we're getting our watch hours in and we're going to get monetized and we're not going to be part of the hate brigade. It's just, it's not a good look for anybody. Yeah, I know. They delete those live streams quickly. They do that. I see them doing that, but they don't delete them all. There's still ones, they're out there for long enough for someone else to download them and to cite them for harassment. You know? So, you know, I'm just hopeful that will help to handle some of that situation. But, you know, today was a very quiet day on YouTube. You guys are still losing people on your new channel? Wow, Mitchell family. That is so sad. Wow. And you've put out several videos explaining. So they're still thinking that that's you on that other channel and you guys don't even control the channel no more. Okay, thanks, Marlon Music. Exactly, Darren. That's the thing. And I don't even, and half the stuff that people are being pulled into is just such BS, y'all. It just doesn't even make any sense. You know, people get sideswiped into stuff, or things that were over months ago are now being regurgitated and brought back to the forefront. It's like, let it go, y'all. And that was a really interesting thing. That was one of the messages in today's service, in my pastor's sermon today, y'all, about people letting things go, leaving things of a negative nature in the past and not looking back at it. You know, kind of like, you know, Lot's wife. Remember when Lot and his wife and his daughters were leaving Sodom and Gomorrah, and God told them to not look back? And she looked back, and she got turned into a pillar of salt. So don't look back. Move forward. Wow. You know what? And some of that is sometimes YouTube purges some of them, Mitchell family, but usually if they're legitimate subscribers, they'll come back. They usually will come back. Like if they go away, they usually come back within 24 to 48 hours. Because I've lost like 15 subscribers at one time. Not as many as you have, but I've lost a bunch of them. And then they came back a couple of days later. So sometimes the subscribers, it happens because YouTube is going through verifying whether people are legitimate subscribers or not. That's why every day we all have to be grinding to get more subscribers, because literally you can lose subscribers at any moment. Because people just, you know, for whatever reason, they may unsubscribe to channels because, you know, you have a certain limit of channels you can be subscribed to. And once you hit that limit based on channels that are subscribed to you, YouTube will stop you from subscribing to more channels. And sometimes when people get to that limit, they start unsubscribing to some channels. It's not right or wrong. It's just what people do. I'm good. Thank you, Theo. Hey, Matt. Exactly. And you know what, Mitchell family? That's why I think you need to have that video, one of the videos explaining that other channel, your original channel, was hacked, as the first automatic video that people have to play when they come to your channel. But make it a short one. You know? And do that as your damage control. Because right now you're still in the process of getting that other channel taken down by flagging their videos for copyright infringements. So, but while you're doing that, yeah, you know how you have to put an introduction video? That should be your introduction video. Quick video explaining what happened, so that people who are subscribing to this channel aren't tricked into thinking that other channel is still yours. Because it can be a little confusing, you know, but I know you had to keep the name similar to the other channel so that you could get your subscribers back. But you might have to put in there, you know, formerly known as this, and, you know, short, you know, not make it so close to the other one. They won't take down the videos. Wow. So they won't take down those videos. That doesn't make any sense. because you guys are being harassed offline. And your children are involved. What kind of crap is that? So what is their rationale for not taking the videos down? Hey, Terry. Yeah, I'm going to be ready to go in just 1 second. I just want to ask them a quick question. Oh, Ms. Recorder, Mitchell family had a channel that got hacked. And it was a monetized channel. And so they've been trying to get the videos taken down from the channel that got hacked because their children are in them. And YouTube is refusing to take them down. Wow. Okay, let me drop the link for you to come up, Terry, though. And Mitchell family, if you can respond to me in the chat on that. That's just so weird that they're doing you like that. Something's just not right about that. Okay. So that means you've got to go get your documents together. I will pull together everything that you have. You know, I will pull together everything that you have showing that that was originally your channel and that, you know, give them information that you also gave to the FBI. You know? Terry, I dropped the link in there for you. Yeah, you're gonna have. So you're just gonna have to give them a little. You're gonna have to give them everything that you have. Copy it. Don't give them your originals, though. Yeah, copy it, but don't give them your originals, Mitchell family. It is scary, Miss Recorder. We did a video on it, one of my live stream last week. And we talked about the entire situation. You know, you can take a look at that where I hashtagged their channel in that video. I think it was Thursday or Friday. And it goes through the whole thing. Walk it up. That's a good thing to do. They can't ignore you on Twitter forever. It's bad press for them, trust me. Yeah, don't come in. Leave me alone. What? Stay. 1 second, guys, I'm coming right back. What's wrong with you? What? Yeah, he's having a day, y'all. He's having a day, y'all. He's having a day. Let's see. Go right back. Oh, there you are, Terry. Let me let you up.
All right. Can you hear me?
Hey, no? Terry. Yep,
Hi.
I can hear you.
Loud and clear? Okay. I'm trying another headphone set today. Hope everybody's been doing very well. Thank you for allowing me on your platform, sis. It's Absolutely. An honor, as always.
Absolutely.
Pardon?
No, I didn't want us to be waiting too long, you know, before we continued our series.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I understand there's also other things on your agenda. Yeah. And so, yeah. I realize that you always have to get back to what your original agenda is for your platform, and I understand that very well.
Yeah.
No, so it's okay.
Yeah, no, but tonight was for us on this, so we're back
Well,
on cue, and
well,
just
okay.
for other people that are in the chat, I did mention this in my chat on last night, but tonight we're going to be talking about a little bit more. I think we want to go just start with the PLO where we left off on them, and we can get back to the Khazarian Jews at if they come into the to the conversation tonight, we can talk about them. But if not, we can table them for another time.
Well, I thought I might do the next 10-year period, 1959 to 1969.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Go to
all right. So
yeah, that's what I said.
right.
If there's time for Khazarian Jews, we can talk about them as they relate to this. If not, they can be on another night.
Okay. All right. I understand, because I mean we're starting really going into the consolidation phase, which really consisted of Zionist forces removing Arabs from their ancient homes, forcing them to surrounding Arab states, mainly Jordan. And what we find, and when you look at this consolidation phase, there, the state of Israel as a finally took over Palestine and renamed it when the British Mandate was up, even after the UN partition plan of 1947. Between mind you, 1951 and 1959, it's important to note that there were no less than 20 seek and destroy missions that were carried out on the Palestinians by Zionist forces, and it could range from firing on those people who were migratory workers who were returning to their villages, to actually going in and physically removing Palestinians from their ancient towns, to straight up machine gunning Arabs. And they were using mortar fire, machine gun fire, tanks, and the small artillery, 105 artillery shells, things of that nature, that were given to them during their consolidation period. Now, they will tell you on the other hand that this was some sort of war of independence, but in actuality, it was a way to annex those particular areas that were cut out from the Resolution 242, which culminated in the UN partition plan.
Terry, just one quick question. Was it in this time that the state of Israel, as they are considered, that they started to put together their own internal forces? Because I know it was at some point that they made it mandatory for the citizens there to be part of their army. Was it during that time that this process started? Or was it strictly the Zionists at this time?
Yes. We get into 1959, the Fatah movement, which was formed by Yasser Arafat out of Cairo, Egypt. And they started to conduct resistance operations against the Zionist forces. This was institutionalized in the main throughout the 1960s. And then, of course, the Palestinian cause received support from a sort of new wave of Arab nationalism at that particular point. Brings us up to 1963, which was the Ba'ath Socialist Party out of Iraq. That's when they took power. By the way, this is the same political party that Saddam Hussein sprung out of years later. Also, they received support from Syria and, of course, Egypt. Now, the primary aim for the Ba'ath Party at that time. They were the more prominent party, which had more of a groundswell of this Arab nationalism, which was supposedly leading to what they call Pan-Arabism at that particular point. But their aim was to aid the Palestinian struggle against genocide, because really that's what you started to see at this particular point. Nothing more than a genocidal pogrom initiated and sustained by the Zionist military in the secular state of Israel. Okay, now let me just, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm glad you brought up that point, because a lot of people are maybe, oops, he dropped off. I guess he'll be back in a second. I was just going to say, a lot of people are confused about Egypt's involvement in trying to assist the Palestinians, really in trying to not lose their land.
Okay, am I back?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, sis.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just saying, I was just making the point that I'm glad you made that point about Egypt, because a lot of people are really confused about what Egypt's actual role was.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely was to support the governments at that time. Understood that they were in a position through their national unity to actually forward resources toward the Palestinian people to help them form the Palestinian Liberation Organization. But what I want to do before I get into that part, I want people to understand that the Arab League, which was a group of leaders from the Arab states, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Libya, and Algeria, and league called the Arab League in 1945.
You're borging a little bit, Terry. I wonder if he went away.
How's that?
Okay, now I can hear you. No, I can hear you.
All right.
All right, I'm gonna go back on mute. Good. I just wanted you to know that you were borging.
No problem. The Arab League, which really was a forerunner of the Palestinian organization, now formed in 1945. Now, the purposes of this league was for securing Arab unity, and as I said earlier, Pan-Arabism. Excuse me. The founding members here, if memory serves, were Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Yemen, I believe, and Saudi Arabia. And then there were two additions. Just give me a second here because I don't have the notes for this, but I studied this very well. Now, there was two additions in the Arab League. I believe it was Libya at the end of the 50s, and I think in the early 60s, well, Algeria, of course, and then I think Kuwait, I believe. Now, I have to check that.
Libya. I always.
But I do know that by 1962, all of these nations, they were all in general opposition to Israel. They understood that Zionism itself was the force that held sway in occupied Palestine. Let's say real quick, if anybody has a question about Zionism. Zionism, I'll give you my definition of it. My definition of it really is a political movement for a secular state in occupied Palestine through raw and naked terrorism. That's really what it is. But if you look it up, if you look at Wikipedia, if you look it up in the dictionary, you won't see that, because they won't tell you about the machinations between 1922, even leading up to the day of the what the Zionist state of Israel has done to Palestine, how they've annexed it, and we'll go into that as we move forward, and how they've murdered and made instantaneous. Hello.
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask
Hello?
a question because I know I keep mixing up these two countries, and I apologize to my brothers and sisters in Africa.
That's all right.
But which country is it that the original founders were from? Were slaves, freed slaves from America? Is it Libya or Liberia? I swear I don't remember. Is it Libya?
Liberia?
It's Liberia. Okay.
Liberia.
That's okay. I'm gonna have that straight in my head. Continue.
No problem. No problem. Okay. So if anybody has any questions later about Zionism at the meeting, I can answer that, but I just wanted to give you my meaning based on what I've seen. Because when you look at the sanitized definition of Zionism, it's not going to tell you about the genocidal war that's been fought against the Palestinians. It's not going to tell you the instantaneous 1 million or more in refugees that they made after the British mandate ran out in 1948. And they're not going to tell you all these things. Okay, so, but when you look at the facts, that's what comes to mind when you when you analyze what Zionism actually is. That's really what it culminates. Now, going in 1964, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, as I said earlier, its forerunner was the Arab League, which formed it out of Cairo, Egypt. Now, initially, it was actually controlled by the Egyptian government of the day. The stated goal at that particular time, the PLO, was the direct destruction of Israel. And you can look that up yourself. And what that meant is not those who were practicing Judaism, but the secular state, because they felt, rightfully so, it is an illegal state, and still is today, in my opinion. Now, they chose to do this through armed struggle to replace it with an independent Palestinian state, specifically between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. So if you look at the map, you can kind of see what they're talking about. But in actuality, they're talking about the entire nation at that particular point, because obviously it was systematically taken over by these people who called themselves Jews, but in fact they were Caucasians from Eastern Europe, or at least their descendants. So when they created this organization, it was created as a response to Zionism, really. Which, again, as I said earlier, let me just make it clear, Zionism is a political military movement to establish a secular state by taking sovereignty of Palestine from Palestinians.
This is not about Judaism, guys.
Go right ahead, sister.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is not about Judaism. This is really about Zionism. Two different things. They just happen to use.
I hope I'm being clear in terms of the difference.
Yeah, they're just being
right. I think
Zionists use Judaism, but Judaism is not specifically part of Zionism. They don't even believe in God. But I digress.
Right. However, they will define either as one and the same. So that's sort of the political trick that is played in the West when you hear people who are pro-Zionist, and they know they are. You can tell because when they really start talking, they'll act like it's one and the same, so that if you make a legitimate criticism of Zionism, they will call you anti-Semitic, when in actuality, they're not the Semites. And I think if anybody attended our earlier videos in this series, we proved that without a doubt through the history of the Khazar Empire. Okay, so, but I think it's really, really important to always point that out, because the propaganda forwarding that falsehood is very, very strong. And so when you hear someone talk, it's easy sometimes to slip into the confusion that they're spreading, they're deliberately spreading. This is really how they continue. And even the military aid they get from the United States, which sis, I can tell you that at some point, I have I have the numbers on that. We don't have to go over that tonight, of course, but as we go further into this history and get closer to the present period, I could definitely give you some staggering numbers concerning what they get just from the United States alone, and it's bilateral aid, by the way.
Yep.
No.
So as we move ahead here, yeah, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
No, I just was agreeing with you. Go right ahead. Yeah. You don't have to give the numbers right now. Just give them as
Okay.
you know, as they become relevant. No problem.
Right, absolutely. Right. So when we go into the 60s, 1964 to 1966, we see that the Zionist attacks started to be met with counter strikes in this particular period, 64 through 66. Zionist border police combatants killed hundreds of Palestinians in this period. Of course, we're citing that the correction, the Zionists themselves were citing that their security was being breached, and they were falsely calling the Palestinians infiltrators, and that the story was that all these Arabs from these neighboring countries, and mind you, these people had taken over this Arab nation, and even today you can see it's as if they're supposed to just accept their fate and not retaliate, and if they do, then they're automatic terrorists. Well, this is where this comes from. And that they threatened the security of Israel, and that these people were Jews who came out of Egypt, which we've already debunked that lie. But they really started to forward this propaganda hard in the West in terms of this indoctrination. And I suppose it wasn't very many people who were restudying this history, much less if it was any documentation on it at that particular time. But many were killed by machine gun fire, as I said earlier. Even in this period, though, tank fire and mortars. The transition period from that time got us into the Six-Day War, 1967. Now, the Six-Day War was really a deliberate attack, an offensive strike by Zionist forces, and by the way, when I say Zionism, I'm speaking by Israeli forces. I like to say Zionist though, because
I understand.
In my opinion, it's occupied Palestine. So just so the chat, anybody knew, yeah, anybody knew. It just for their benefit, I want them not to. Hopefully, they're not confused while I'm saying that. I am saying Zionist Israel because occupied Palestine, and I really don't acknowledge them as legit, even though they're supported by the United States and the Great Britain. So in the Six-Day War was significant because it showed the annexationist tendencies of Zionism. So the Zionist forces launched the offensive strike on Egyptian air forces following a naval blockade. Okay, and this area was in the the Sinai Peninsula, which is east of the Egyptian nation, but I guess it's part of Egypt at that time as well. Uh, so because of that military buildup from the Egyptians, and I think, well, in my opinion, the Egyptians uh, stationed their military there to protect what they felt was their sphere of influence. But that offensive strike caught them off guard. So uh, the Western allies interpreted that as an act of war, a pretext to invasion. So in that 6 days, it became a regional conflict. But also you had the forces of Syria in that area and Jordan, which had backed Egypt. All those forces were routed by the Zionist attack, and that was only because they really caught the Egyptian, Syria, and Jordan forces off guard, where they had their air force resources grounded. So the 6 Day War was won by Zionist Israel. So that was another really attack on the Arab world, though. And that's what the Arab League and other Arab states and leaders took that as. Go ahead, sis.
No, and I was just gonna say that it was that this was in 1966, right? And this is around the same
67.
67. Okay, because you know, everything, what I'm starting to discover is that everything that our country did around that time, even if it didn't appear to be related to what was going on over there, really had something to do with things that were going on over there. So I'm trying to figure out how, when we went to Vietnam, because this is when we were in Vietnam, how that us being over in Vietnam benefited what was going on in the Middle East. You see how my mind is working? So
yes, it's a good question. But something definitely we can work on.
Yeah, but I'm gonna look into that. I'm gonna let you continue with that, because I'm gonna do the research on that and see if we can figure that out too. Because I'm thinking we were in Vietnam at that time. We were conveniently not available.
Yes, true. Right.
Okay, carry on.
But of course, if they were, they would have fought on the Zionist side anyway. So the net result of this 6-Day War was the Zionist forces captured the Sinai Peninsula, which was part of Egypt, the Gaza Strip, which was in Palestine, and actually routed and moved out the Egyptian forces who were there protecting the interests of the Palestinians prior to that. Eastern Jerusalem, which was part of the UN partition, so-called peace plan, they took that. And the West Bank from the Jordanian forces as well, who was also that part of that partition plan, they took that part. Also, they took control of Golan Heights, which is the northern part of occupied Palestine, from the Syrian forces. So all these forces now, all these areas were under the direct authority of Zionist Israel at this particular point. In opposition to that, the Arab League issued a resolution. This is September 1967 now. The Arab League issued this resolution that culminated in 3 main points. One, and Arab, if you remember, about 5-6 minutes ago, I talked about those particular countries that were part of the Arab League. All of them said, number one, no peace with Zionism. 2, no recognition of Zionism. And 3, no negotiations of Israel. Created more tension, created a situation where now the counterattacks from the Palestinians, but not only be intensified, but also justified in areas where those issues were discussed. The UN Council chipped in November 1967, and something I had talked about a little earlier briefly was the Resolution 242, which was a land for peace formula between Israel and Palestine. This was a way to kind of end the conflict, kind of bring them both to the negotiation table, but it really didn't work, to be honest with you, because every time a third party, whether it's a UN or whether it's the United States, Great Britain, what you'll find is the actual negotiations always favored Zionism to remain in power. So this is something that the Palestinians, even today, have never accepted, really.
And isn't there something that the UN has in place that has forced a lot of countries to recognize Israel as a state?
Yes, at this particular point today, yes. In fact, it's sort of a de jure recognition by the UN now. They kind of gave them a promotion from observer status now to an actual state. But we'll have to see, in fact, what it is, because in my mind, if Zionist Israel can get billions of dollars in aid, the latest technology, military weaponry, if they can get that kind of support, then a state of Palestine should get the same support from somebody. So if that's not the case, it's only de jure. It's really not worth the paper it's written on. So we'll have to see. But yes, in terms of lip service, in terms of what's written on paper, yes, it is now supposedly an actual state with some sort of international, authority. But we'll see at some point, because you have to understand Zionism is an annexationist system that wants more land. I've said earlier that the neighboring countries, Iraq and Jordan, the Zionist forces have a 20-mile occupation within their borders. And as I said, this would be an act of war anywhere else, but they're allowed to do that. So we'll see how much authority the Palestinians have in terms of, within the international stage.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because this is all about land and political power.
Right.
Okay.
So I think.
Mute again.
Oh, okay. No problem. So we're getting into into late 1967 with the Land for Peace formula, which didn't work. That was the UN Resolution 242, which brings us into 1968, when Zionist attacks were launched against Jordanian forces once again, and Fatah forces of the PLO. They also attacked Beirut by bombing its airport. Zionist Israel calls the destruction of the airport, and I have that here, to the tune of $43.8 million that was destroyed by direct attacks. And again, when they attack these countries, you see, they don't want anybody getting involved. You see, they want to ensure that as long as Israel has the advantage, and they can put this narrative out that they're protecting their so-called security, they sort of almost a preamble for them in terms of their excuses that they give. But it tends to be it tends to get a lot of traction in the West. Now, by 1969, Yasser Arafat became head of the Fatah party. was appointed the chairman of PLO after the Fatah. Now, Fatah is not in control today of the PLO. We'll get to that. At the point, 1969, it entered another phase with Yasser Arafat, became more strategic in terms, more surgical in terms of their counterattacks, and also more diplomatic as well. So you had a diplomatic side, of course, depending on what the enemy was, and then of course you had a sustained resistance side. So it was what we see here is Zionist attacks in advance and Palestinian resistance, although the Palestinians are called terrorists, but it's really the other way around. They were attacked, and at this particular time in the 1960s, during the late 60s, we also find that they were attacking Arab mosques. They're arsoning them in places like not Galilee, but Jerusalem, places like that. And you start to see certain historical landmarks that were there for centuries. Suddenly explain whether there were people in and around these tracks or not.
Yeah, and I just want you guys to take in a note that them doing all this destruction to the land that they supposedly came from, but they didn't really. Carry on.
Right. So really was sort of, it was you can call it ethnic cleansing. You'd be correct. You can call it genocide or pogrom, directed and deliberate attacks to cleanse the land. It was to settle other Caucasians that they consider Jews. And these are those who are Jewish converts that really are not the descendants of Abraham, but they claim descendants of Abraham. Now, this is where again it can confound your thinking if you're not listening, or if you don't understand the history here, or who actually came out and I know you made that remark. That's not even the land that they were supposed to go to, but their story is that even so, they're fulfilling biblical prophecy, and so they're getting the religious.
Right. They're not the biblical Jews. They claim to be the biblical Jews. The biblical Jews were people of color, people that they were what they were. We're not going to debate that. And any thinking person, if you do the histrionics and just figure out what's going on, then you understand that these people are Jews. They just are Jewish converts who converted after the death of Christ. So they cannot possibly be the biblical Jews for that very reason.
Right. But that falsehood seems to sustain itself even today.
It does.
So anytime you talk the truth, and this is
then the sad part is that many people know that truth and ignore that truth. And we just want people to know the truth.
Right.
It's fine that they profess Judaism. That's fine, but just don't misdirect people into thinking that you are the actual biblical Hebrews, because we know that it's not genetically possible. So,
yeah. Also, you see coming out very, very strong at this particular point in time, the link. They're making this link that's with the Hebrews that did occupy in the ancient days, that did occupy that particular region there. And so you see also another strategy of confusing your thinking with that as well, saying that, well, they were there and you really can't say that they're Zionists because they were already there. They weren't looking for a home. and so you can't call us on. We're linked with these people. If you follow the logic here, then so anything to kind of derail the truth of what has happened to the Palestinians, and unfortunately, the West has really aided them and abetted this situation for years. But again, it is presented as if the Israeli people, the secular state, are the good guys, and the Palestinians are the bad guys. And when really it's the other way around. It's just that Zionism has the tacit support of the Western Hemisphere and the capitalist bloc nations. Now, what I like to do, because really we're at the end of 1969. Sis, if you don't mind, I want to go into a brief word, a very brief, on the 10 splinter organizations that came out of the PLO.
Go right ahead.
I won't go into all the history. I was going to who they are.
Because we're at a good, we have good time now, so it's good. You can go right ahead into that right now.
Right. I'll just briefly go into it. These were militant groups that thought that even the position of the Palestinians, and I gave you a little bit about what they felt when they were formed in 1964, the destruction of Israel by violent means. Well, I guess these particular organizations, there's only 5 of them really that I found, and it could be more now. So I'll continue this research on this. That felt that even the Palestinian Liberation Organization wasn't militant enough, so they split because of also ideological differences and I'm sure personality clashes as well. The objective of these organizations were complete Arab sovereignty over Palestine, period. So in other words, even if Jews that were Caucasians could live in that particular country, they do it under Palestinian Arab sovereignty, something that the Zionists will never concede to. But this is what is really the driving force that gave forward thrust to what these groups decided. They felt that also that there should be a Palestinian refugee right of return, since over 1 million and probably more today that are descendants of the first group that were forced out of Palestine, 1947, 1948, and onward. It should be a right of return under Palestinian sovereignty. And a new, excuse me a minute. Sorry, it fell out my ear. In a new independent Palestine. These groups were dedicated to the overthrow of Zionism through violent means, meaning guerrilla strategies and tactics. So there's 5 of them. One was called the PFLP. It stood for the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Another one, was called, the PPP/GC, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine. The other one was called, and this was probably the most violent one, the Abu Nidal Organization, which is, these are the people who blow up. In fact, these people were the ones that took the Intifada, the second Intifada, which was really all out guerrilla war against anything they thought was Zionist. Go right ahead, sis.
No. I was just saying that last one you named. I think I've heard of them. The Abu.
Yeah, there's a lot on the Abu Nidal. Yeah.
I've heard of them.
They like to. a lot of explosives, a lot of TNT, a lot of electronic bombing, remote control. That is, uh, and we definitely get into these a little later. I just wanted to name them for now. There's two more. There's also the Islamic Jihad, and then of course Hamas. Now Hamas are the people who are the uh, party who has now effectively taken over the PLO. Excuse me, the PLO. So those fives are important because it shows some of the fissions and fractures in this counter movement to defeat Zionism. And even though they may agree on some things, there's also some points, some important points they have of contention that that tends to groups to splinter off and do other things, even more militant than the PLO, which uh, effectively is that's recognized anyway by the world. Is so representative of the Palestinian people. But I think, though, let me just say real fast, though, in my opinion, I think that these this acceptance of the PLO, I think, is nothing more than a co-optation of what it is, so they can then control it. This is one of the tactics, though, of imperialism. So we have to watch out for that and be very, very mindful, because if they start, you know, leaving their original mission, you know what I mean, it's going to be a serious problem for the Palestinian people. So if they, if they start, let's say, changing what their original direction is, then you'll know that their leaders have been bought off.
Yep, they've been compromised. Yeah, we have to. That's the thing, is because I mean, ideally, what should happen is that there should have been the state should have been a commingling if they were going to try to do something, but that was never the Zionist intent, and at this particular point in time, I think
the Palestinians.
I said, I think at this point in time, I think that it's going to continue to be an area of strong conflict. And that's why I want us to be going to talk about this, because even though, we don't talk about anything, but you guys realize that we're still over there. We've been at war over in that region my son's entire life. We've been at war over in that region since before my son was born. And while we're talking about all of this stuff and giving all this histrionics, this is giving also an indication as to why the U.S. why our young men and women are still over there for no reason, really, except for greed of our country.
And by the way, Zionist attacks in a modern sense, modern history, date back to 1922. They really, you look at the Balfour Declaration, even before that, they a lot of them were really, they were kind of sneaking in and setting up.
They were trying
cities in town.
Yeah, because they started really in the early 1900s, way before anything happened in Germany.
So we're talking, So we're talking about over 100 years at this point.
Yeah, the things that happened in Germany, contrary to what people know, is that the Zionists had a hand in that happening, and that some of those people who were killed were not necessarily Jews.
Absolutely.
And,
let me just also say.
Go ahead.
I'll go ahead, sis. Oh, I was just going to say, let me also just add that at the time of the Balfour Declaration, it was issued in 1917 by the British government, uh, authored by Arthur Balfour, which he was the Secretary of the Colonies for Britain. You had 600,000, approximately 600,000 Palestinians in Palestine at that particular time, even though, of course, it was under a British mandate at this particular time, taken from the Ottoman Empire. We had covered that, but you only had 60,000 people of Caucasian extract there, and there were about, because there were some other people there, and I'll have to get those statistics, but I do remember those two. I remember 600,000 and 60. That 60,000 of the Caucasian extract was only 8% of the population. So you have to understand the demographics then, as it went on after 1948, and then of course leading up to now.
And they're saying before they came in there, that there were Palestinians. There were some people who were, practicing Khazarian Jews that lived there, but there were also Christians, and there were Africans. There were many people living in that one land, but it was under, it was still considered Palestine. It was modern day Palestine. I mean, it is what it is. It was, I mean, in my head, I'm trying to think. It hadn't been called Israel since the actual real Israelites were there. And they left, right, and it became Palestine.
They were never before 1948. After they became very numerous, obviously because of the return programs to actually fill the country up with Caucasians. But
with the return program
prior to
I hate the return program.
Well, my point is, prior to that, they were never. Pardon me. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sis.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to interject that, prior to 1948 and beyond, before really they started to initiate this genocidal attack against the Arabs to really get rid of them from the landscape of Palestine, they were never the majority as a number. They were never at any point that I can find. I went back as far as I could. They were always a minority group. They were never sovereign there. Yes, they were there in the ancient times, but they weren't, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't as if, I guess I can compare it to a country that has a majority people made up of a certain race, and then you have a minority. Well, they're ever that I know of, and so a lot of this,
and that's also because we know that the actual original Israelites were made up of many people from Africa. So of course you wouldn't find a whole bunch of people who were Caucasian there ever. Ever.
Right.
It just wouldn't have happened. Which is the other reason why we say that that's why we know that they are not the original biblical Jews. No one is this.
So it just goes right.
Yeah, that they claim Judaism as their religion. We're just disputing the fact that they are actually the biblical Jews. We don't want people to believe that lie.
Right, and because of the fact that you can never compromise principle. Once you do that, in terms of PLO, once you do that, you're done. So I think again, we look at this tacit acceptance now of all these people now by the international community as a state. Well, we'll have to see if they have the trappings of a state. We got to see what kind of government they're going to get at some point, whether they get a military, whether they get a defense budget. You understand? If you don't get those things like the other folks, then it's meaningless. So you have de facto on one hand. If you have those things, you definitely have a nation, a de facto sovereignty. If you don't, it's de jure. You're just subject to being controlled by the entity that's more powerful than you. In this case, is Zionist Israel.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, because
and I don't see. Oh, go ahead.
No, I said it appears that they may be becoming more of a political party than what they were intended to be, and that
Right.
might be the
See,
fear.
so and I'm afraid. Right. So that's it's the seeds of co-optation that I'm beginning to see. That once the people who support your enemy, who really are your enemy, tends to, or the leading those who are leading that charge, or saying that we accept you. Uh, Normally, there's agenda behind that to render you ineffective. We see that a lot, even with on a smaller level, and I think we can compare this to some of the mainstream civil rights organizations in the 60s that just wanted to be part of the American landscape.
Right.
But they had a lot of things. They were kind of sucked in and then controlled by the liberal part of the Democratic Party, and even Zionism, by and large, uh, in the United States. Those who were
That's
part of
true.
that, as an extension, mind you. So yeah, but again, it's a difference between uh, your principles and those who want to work to control you, control your movements, control your your political decisions, and normally to render what your intent, your original intent, ineffective, and that is to maintain hegemony in the Middle East. And I think we need to understand that.
But something that I ponder is that you guys notice how our country, the United States, is very leery of someone who calls themselves a Jew becoming president of this country. Have you guys ever wondered why? It's because they know the truth. They know the truth. And that's why they don't want someone who says that they are one of them, because that they're saying that's one of the reasons why, of course, it was harder on Hillary, because she had Mr. Lieberman as her running mate. So, they call that anti-Semitism, but really what it is that they don't know if that person is part of the Zionist party undercover, pretending to be a Democrat, because most of the time they're in the Democratic Party, and there still can be undercover Zionists. Could you imagine if one became the president of the United States?
Yes, there's most of it. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a continuity of policy, though, to continually prop them up militarily, and it's solely militarily right now. It was military and economic at one point, could be again, but at this point it's solely military. So you would probably see an intensification of aid and diplomatic negotiations
true.
going on. Even more. Every president, no matter what party, and the American military aid, economic aid, started in, I believe, 1971. I believe, with Richard Nixon. In earnest, it started there. Yeah, it started there, and of course it's fluctuated, but they've really given them a lot. Some
and they really
loans
don't need
on one hand. What?
They don't need anybody's help.
Pardon?
They don't need our help. We're just giving it to them.
Are we talking about the Zionists?
Not as far as their military.
See, I think right.
I don't think that
they definitely are equipment, but if that aid was cut off tomorrow, the regime could sink within a week. So yes, since they really do depend on benefactors because it's a legitimate government. You see, and everybody knows it. Everybody who understands the history of that is.
Wow.
So
they need benefactors.
Yeah,
they need benefactors of legitimate countries to keep them propped up, basically.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. They would be overtaken by the Arab states within a week. It'd be, that's why, they're working, the West is working to get governments in place in these Arab states that attack Israel, that will allow Israel to do what it wants. So it needs puppets even there.
Well, we see how that's going for them right now. Not going very well.
Right.
That's not going very well. And the thing is that now, it's when we dig more into this stuff, it just gives you a better understanding of what's really going on versus the high level of what they want you to know. I mean, because to be perfectly honest with you guys, it doesn't benefit the U.S. to have a relationship with Israel. It benefits Israel to have the relationship with us. Even though our president jumps through all these freaking hoops for them, he's the first one in a long time to jump through hoops with them.
But we know there is a geographical strategic reason as well that the United States and the other Western nations can use out of occupied Palestine with the Zionist government. So there are some benefits there in terms of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization as well. Yeah. So in NATO. There are some things there.
Yeah, but we still have our own daggone ships, our own people all over there. So that's why I'm saying, even though it's not really, because we still have our own people over there. So we don't really trust them for that now, do we? The only is we don't really trust them for that because we still have our own people over there for a million years. It's like I literally can't think of any time within the last 25 years that we have not been occupying some place over in the Middle East.
Again, going back to right. I think all one has to do, and I won't go over it again. I went over it a few times in terms of what imperialism is. But there is a book that one can read. It's called Imperialism by V.I. Lenin. You should pick that book up or try to find it somewhere and read it if you really want to know what it is. It was written in 1917. Very, very important book. Gives you a succinct definition of imperialism.
Matt said Trump is only concerned about future business deals. Yeah, I'm sure he wants to keep to have a nice relationship with them, because as soon as he, leaves the White House, he's going to use everything in his private business again to become a richer man than he was. He'll be able
questions.
to
Any questions, comments from the chat?
Yeah, you guys have any questions about? Because I know this was a lot tonight, but we wanted to kind of get it as far as we could on that.
We'll go from 70 to 79. Next installment.
Okay, if you guys don't have any questions on it, then we're kind of, that's all we were going to be doing on tonight, was really, what I talked about at the beginning, which is, just my stuff that I have to get out. I do have one other thing that I wanted to talk about. And this is
absolutely
a rant thing. Yeah, you can go down if you want, Terry, because this is separate.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with that. This is kind of a YouTube rant I have, but I'm going to FYI it out to everybody.
It's some.
What did you say?
Oh, okay. It's nothing. It's nothing that I can give. It wouldn't be anything that I can give my own opinion about.
Commentary. So this is what I wanted to say. Okay. So
all right. Well, let me stay.
I've been listening to you know, you guys all know that I'm an autism mom. Okay. So one of the things that I have a major dislike for is people using people being special needs when they're beefing with them, or taking autism and putting it under the umbrella of mental illness. Sounds ignorant to me when you do that. You know, you YouTubers who are out there doing that in your beefs, using special needs, talking about people being on the short bus, all that kind of stuff. I've ranted about this before, but I've kind of listened to some other things. And then the ironic thing is that one of the people who was doing this, who shall be nameless, because I'm not going to give them that energy, I now find out actually worked with special needs, and then they still get out there and talk this madness. Oh, okay. So that makes that person even more ignorant in my eyes. You know, I kind of want people to not use people who have developmental disabilities and sling that term around to people because you have a beef with them. Even if you think they have that, I wouldn't be slinging that out there, because I'm gonna tell you, most of the people who have autism are probably smarter than you fools that are on here doing all this beef, calling people autistic. So you can say what you want on that.
No, I other than nothing more than I agree. I agree. You know, I mean, as you know, I at one time I worked with those adult males on the extreme part of the spectrum, but
it's just pure ignorance.
So I take it personal.
It's happening in Black YouTube, so that's why I'm saying it. It's Black YouTubers who are doing this stupidness.
Right.
Black YouTubers, stop it.
Yeah.
You know, so I put that little rant at the end of the thing about that, but it just bothers me, and I think I am going to have on one of my live streams coming up soon. I'm going to talk about the difference between autism and mental health issues. I'm going to talk about what the difference is, because clearly some people need to be educated on that. You can have autism and you can have mental health issues, but the two do not necessarily go together. You don't necessarily have both. You know, they're not mutually exclusive. But we've got some dummies out there that like to put them together, and they're just they're miseducating and they're misspeaking, and they think that they sound smart, but they actually sound stupid.
I haven't heard any of them yet, because I probably don't go to those live streams, so I haven't. You know, when you get a chance, you'll have to kind of slip me who these people are. So
yeah, I hear them in passing. You know, and it's part of when they're out there trashing people. Yeah, when they're out there trashing people, this is the kind of stuff that comes out of their mouth. Yeah, I take offense.
I mean, I do know that the war. Yeah, I do know that the verbal war continued, but I haven't went to his live stream. I don't even, because it seems now it's just, I don't even think they're even talking anymore. It's all these other stuff now. So I'm kind of through with it now, you know. So if those people, then I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I've been done with them, but this is stuff this is stuff that's a pattern with these people, because it's saying in the stuff that's going on now, but then like if you go back and listen to stuff that they did in the past, it's stuff that they said in months ago. So it's a pattern with them using autism in describing people. So that's what my problem is. They call them special needs, but you know that they're talking about either they have autism or ADHD, and carelessly throwing those terms out when they're not experts on them. We should not be having these conversations or diagnosing people on YouTube.
Yeah. Very disrespectful. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was that last thing that I wanted to say, because You know, I've been holding on to that for a couple of days.
Okay.
That
All right. Good. All right, sis. Well,
but thank you for coming up tonight.
Is there anything you'd like to discuss?
No.
All right. All right.
No,
That's cool. I'll go back down, but
yeah, and I think we'll start. I don't. Well, we'll see. We'll see how tomorrow is. But I was thinking maybe we would continue this either tomorrow or Tuesday. But I'm probably Tuesday is New Year's Eve, so
Tuesday would be better for me.
Yeah, and I'll probably do an earlier show on.
Okay, Tuesday. Well, yeah, definitely. Yeah, we can.
So we'll figure it out.
Next week will be better for me, though.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
All right.
All right. See ya.
All right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming out. I know that this is one of my heavier conversations in here, but I'm a nerdy girl. I like to talk about things that are, I like to get the history of things, and this is something that a lot of people don't know about, and I think people need to know all aspects of what's going on in the Middle East, because it really does affect us in this country, because we're still at war for over 25 years in that region, and a lot of it has to do with what things that are going on in Israel, in the state of Israel and the state of Palestine, and I just want to make sure that we're educated and we're woke, and also know how it also impacts us as, people in the diaspora. But I appreciate you guys coming out tonight. I appreciate everybody for coming. Tickets, touch. Thank you to all my mods. You guys are off the chain. And thank you to all my crowd watchers who came through as well. I appreciate you guys as well for coming through. But as always, until the next time, I am going to offer you guys peace and blessings. And I hope you guys like the subject matter, because we got more. Trust and believe. Thank you guys for coming on out. Thank you, Terry, for coming up and helping me out on this one. I appreciate you. See you guys tomorrow. Good night, everyone.